Hello, everyone. Welcome back to part two of our 91st episode of the Cleveland Sports Show. Joining me once again this week to kick off our new year, starting 2021 off on the right foot with Logan Purcell. Logan, thank you so much for taking some time out of your New Year's Day to join us and talk about some Cleveland sports.
Of course, it's always a pleasure.
So, Logan, what definitely was a pleasure as well, I would have to say, is the way the Cleveland Cavaliers started their NBA season. They started off a perfect 3-0 and just looked fantastic. The ball movement, everyone looked like they were on the same page. JB Bickerstaff looks like has trust in his guys, and there are still a lot of players out. Matthew Dellavedova has been out for a while with a concussion. Jalen Windler hurt his wrist early in the season, so he'll be out for a while. And Kevin Porter Jr. having some personal issues as well, so he'll be out. Looks like for the foreseeable future. And now Kevin Love's going to be out for 3 to 5 weeks. We're going to get to Kevin Love a little bit later. But right now, let's talk about the 3 wins the Cavs had to start the season. They first beat Charlotte in their home opener Wednesday, December 23rd, 121-114. Despite a 42-point phenomenal performance from Terry Rozier, a Youngstown native, the Hornets were just not able to get it done. LaMelo Ball, surprising, 16 minutes, no points for LaMelo, and only 3 assists. But the Cavs were fantastic. They scored 41 points alone in the second quarter. Colin Sexton and Darius Garland combined for 49 points, Logan. They looked great, and they carried that to their first game on the road as well. This was a much tougher game against a Detroit Pistons team on the road, as I mentioned, who was not going to back down. The Cavs gave up 33 points alone in the third quarter in that game against Detroit, and it looked like the Pistons were really going to pull away there. However, the Cavs maintained their poise, scored 20 points in the fourth quarter, and forced overtime. However, it wasn't enough. Colin Sexton and the crew had to battle in a second overtime where they outscored Detroit 16-7 to win the game 128-119 to get their second win of the season and a 2-0 record. In that game against Detroit, Logan, Colin Sexton was by far the MVP. 32 points for him in 45 minutes. He played the most minutes out there for the Cavs. Isaac Okoro in 42 minutes, 0 points. Isaac Okoro is not traveling with the team on their current road trip due to a foot injury, so that's not the best thing you want to see. But hey, Cavs 2-0 at this point, and then they had a game this past Sunday, against the Philadelphia 76ers, routed Philadelphia. I actually went to this game, Logan. They had a lot of safety protocols there at Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse that you have to abide by. But it was still a fantastic atmosphere, and it was even better with this Cavs blowout. I was very surprised with this result. The Philadelphia 76ers looked sluggish. They lacked little energy, and it was just very, very concerning to see. But with the Cavs, I just saw a team that, especially coming off a 2 overtime game, I thought they were going to be tired coming into this game. Not the case whatsoever. Those young guys really stepped up. Colin Sexton with another big night against Philly, 22 points in 29 minutes. Andre Drummond has been a huge contributor for the Cavs lately, 24 points in 26 minutes for him. And it just looks like a team that in their first 3 games looked like everyone was on the same page. And again, that ball movement for them is critical. When they're a team that moves the ball, they honestly can be unstoppable on the offensive side of the ball. I obviously think they have a lot of work to do defensively, as we've seen from their last couple of games here. But I know I've done a lot of talking, Logan, so I want to hear from you. Let's just look at these first 3 games of the season, which were all wins by the Cavs. And by the way, this is the first time the Cavs have a winning record since LeBron's been here in these last few years. So in these first 3 wins, Logan, what have you seen from the Cavs? Who stood out to you? Who do you wish could have been playing a little better? Your overall thoughts on these first 3 wins?
Well, for me, probably the biggest standout for these past 3 games has been Colin Sexton. He had a very mediocre year last year, in my opinion. I mean, he played well considering the circumstances, but I don't think he played worse what a lot of people had expected him. too, but I think he's finally found a little bit of a rhythm, and he's caught his stride a little bit. And, he's getting a lot of points per game. He's really started to kick it up, and he's played a lot better. So he's definitely my standout player for these first 3 games.
And also, what I love about Sexton, too, is it seems like he never gets tired, Logan. This is a guy who's going to go at you 110% every play, no matter whether it's the 8th minute of the first quarter or in the final minutes. He's going to come at you 110%, and that's what I really appreciate about Colin Sexton. To me, he is the face of the franchise, and I think he and Darius Garland, Logan, are really going to be a backcourt that's going to be tough to handle in these next coming years. What are your thoughts on how Darius Garland has evolved offensively? Because he really, to me, has looked like he's been improving.
Yeah, I think, coming into the league, a lot of people expected Garland to be very similar to, like a John Wall, a guy that, is maybe a bit undersized compared to his position, but he's a very good playmaker, and he knows how to get the ball around where it needs to be. But I think one of the big strides that he's really improved in is three-point shooting and his ability to shoot the ball off the dribble. He didn't really have that coming into the league last year, but I think he finally, similar to Sexton, has found his shot a little bit. With Sexton, it's a little bit more of taking control of the ball, because last year he was a little bit more off the ball. He didn't play a lot of the guard. A lot of that was just he didn't play that much at that guard position. He was playing more of the 2, and he's having to play that now too.
Yeah.
But instead, they've kind of got those two switching off the 1 and 2, which gives them both a little bit of opportunity to hold the ball and be the playmaker.
And also, Logan, I'm looking at the big men for the Cleveland Cavaliers, most notably Andre Drummond and Larry Nance Jr. They've really held their own down there in the paint. Larry Nance Jr. actually, going into yesterday, led the league in most number of deflections by a rather wide margin, with about 27 or so in only 4 games. So I'm looking at that, Logan, this supporting cast for the Cavs. I obviously think Kevin Porter Jr. is a critical piece, as well as Matthew Dellavedova. But even without those guys, especially in their first 3 games, the Cavs have been able to really hold serve with, guys coming off the bench. And what are your thoughts, Logan, about Darius Garland and Colin Sexton's supporting cast? How do you think they've played so far?
Well, one of the things that I was really excited to come on and talk about with this Cavs team is, you mentioned the Sixers win and how sluggish the Sixers look. And one of the things that I feel you're never going to have to deal with, with going to a Cavs game, is you're not going to – this team is young, they're fast, and they like to get out and run.
Yeah.
I mean, they have one of the best rim-running forwards in the league, in my opinion. I mean, he's up there with Montrezl Harrell, Larry Nance, I'm referring to.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that the supporting cast of this group really complements Sexton and Garland and the way that they play, because, with the inside interior and the threat of Andre Drummond in there, because, if the ball gets into Andre Drummond, he's going to score it somehow, he's going to draw a foul. So, a lot of teams are going to have to pinch down, leaving wide open shooters, guys like Garland and Sexton, giving them reason to improve that shot. So it gives them a little bit more of an incentive to learn to get that shot better, which is exactly what they've done. And I think that is a key factor as to why the Cavs have been successful.
Yeah, for sure. Also, Logan, wanted to get your thoughts on one more player, Isaac Okoro, 5th pick in this year's NBA draft. He has missed a majority of the season so far for the Cavs, played in their first 2 games, hasn't played since. He's missed the last 3. And Isaac Okoro, in the Cavs home opener against Charlotte, had 11 points, 5 assists, and 3 rebounds in 34 minutes. And in his second game against the Detroit Pistons, he struggled, Logan, in that double overtime win for the Cavs. Okoro didn't have a point, didn't have a steal, only 3 rebounds. And what the concerning part for me in this performance was he played for 42 minutes. And you can't even register a point or an assist in 42 minutes. That was a little bit concerning for me. What are your thoughts on that now he's out? So, Logan, what are your thoughts on how Okoro's played so far? I know it's only 2 games, but what do you see?
Well, based on the numbers and watching the game, it's pretty obvious that he's one of those players that it's going to take him probably a couple months to get used to the speed of the game. It is an 82-game season. They're not used to that. They're used to, 30, 40 in college, and you're doubling that. And then you're playing, 2-3 times a week, maybe back to back. You're playing double overtime games, things like that. It's much longer. It's a much more grueling season. So I think he's one of those guys that is going to have to, find a way to deal with that. I'm excited to see his midseason form, but I think part of the reason is the head. Based on Mr. Bickerstaff, he's not really getting Okoro involved in the offense. I mean, it's a lot of pick and roll offense is what this team has run a lot with Garland and Drummond and Sexton and Nance. It's been those four guys really running the offense.
Yeah. Which leaves
that wing guy, Okoro, in the situation, kind of, on his own island, where, you see a lot of talented threes in the league. They help run the offense. So I think one of the things the Cavs should do to incorporate him when he comes back is try to let him run the guard maybe a little bit. He's shown some guard skills, and I think maybe pick and roll might benefit their offense a little bit. It might give a little bit more access to the corners for threes and things like that.
Yeah, I'm certainly interested to see how Isaac Okoro is going to be able to integrate himself within that Cavs offense, because we saw during the preseason, this is a guy who can create his own shots. He can create his own offense. He doesn't need Colin Sexton to do everything set him up or anything like that. And I think that's definitely going to be something big, especially when Kevin Porter Jr. comes back. And, I think the Cavs need Kevin Porter Jr. and Matthew Dellavedova more than ever, because they just need some more help off that bench. I don't think Dante Exum is getting it done for the Cavs. He actually started in their game last night against the Pacers. We're going to get to Dante Exum. I'm going to bring him up with the Kevin Love subject we're going to talk about a little later. But let's talk about the two losses the Cavs have had, Logan, in their last two games. Knicks and Cavs played this past Tuesday, December 29th, 2020. Cavs lost to New York. Final score of that one, 95-86 in favor of the Knicks. And, Logan, when you talk about it's one of those nights when it comes to shooting the basketball, that was it for the Cleveland Cavaliers. They were 7 of 32 from three-point range. That's only 22%, and only 32 of 88 from the field, only 36%. Only 22 assists for the Cavs. They did register 10 blocks on the evening to go along with 13 steals, but they also had 13 turnovers. That's not even close to how many the Knicks had. The Knicks had 25 turnovers in that game and still managed to win, and Obi Toppin didn't even play. So, Logan, this Cavs-Knicks game, what were your kind of takeaways? I know obviously the Cavs struggled shooting the basketball, but how do you feel the Cavs can really, if the shooting's not going for the Cavs, what other options can they do offensively?
Well, when I look at the Cavs, I don't really think of them as much of a shooting team, despite a lot of popular opinion. I mean, this team just isn't, full of shooters. You don't look at the starting lineup and think, they've got a bunch of snipers. This isn't the Warriors team from 2 years ago. You don't have the two of the greatest shooters of all time in your starting lineup. I mean, in my opinion, you don't have a top 10 shooter on that team right now. And I think that they need to work the bigs. And, in the Knicks game, they didn't really, incorporate Andre Drummond that much. They didn't incorporate Nance on the inside. It was more, get it to him and kick out. And the Knicks did a great job of pinching on that inside anytime they try to get the ball on the inside. But that's when, maybe you tell Sexton or Garland to start stepping in that three-point line, maybe make a couple moves, try to get to the basket and draw some fouls.
Yeah, I would say that. I was going to say, just sorry to interrupt, but I would say you hit the nail in that one, Logan, because Sexton is a guy who's proven he can get to the hole. He's done it countless times in his young career. That's a guy who can get to the basket. And, Darius Garland has shown me that he's not afraid to, step inside and shoot a little floater. So they should be doing that a little more. But continue. Just wanted to hit the nail on that one.
And the one thing that does kind of concern me about that game is, if you notice between the first and second half stats, which you can use the split stats to compare, is there weren't any adjustments that really, they could have made some adjustments that maybe helped them a little bit.
Yeah.
We could have, mentioned to Sexton, hey, step in, drive, use your speed. He's got blazing speed, use it. He was standing on the outside waiting for those bigs to kick it out, which I think that, they're relying on the bigs a little too much in those kinds of games to play make, and that's why they struggle to shoot the ball and score. I think the guards need to take a little bit better control of the game in those kinds of moments and make a decision because, it was only a 9-point loss. Mm-hmm. That's one of those times in the last 2-3 minutes of the game, you expect your guards to pick up the ball and start and do something with it. So I think part of that loss has got to go on Bickerstaff on not making any adjustments on the second half.
Yeah, absolutely. And last Cavs game we're going to talk about here was their most recent one, Logan. Last night, New Year's Eve in the afternoon, Cavs were in Indianapolis to play Victor Oladipo and the Pacers. That game in Indianapolis was the start of a 6-game road trip that the Cavs will be going on. They'll be going to Atlanta, Orlando, 2 games in Orlando, actually, Memphis, and then they'll close out their 6-game road trip in Milwaukee against the Bucks. So, to me, in this game in Indianapolis, Logan, the Cavs really were rather competitive for the whole first half. I really was pleased with what I saw. They were down by 11 after the first quarter, but they picked it up in the second quarter. They outscored Indiana 30-25. Larry Nance Jr., 10 points, 5 rebounds, 7 assists, excuse me. Colin Sexton, Darius Garland combined for 49 points again, and rest of the Cavs' total roster combined for 50. So, where if you were Indiana, it was easy to play defense because you knew where the majority of the offense was going to come from. It was going to come from Colin Sexton and Darius Garland. And, I was a little bit concerned with the second half performance for the Cavs, Logan. They gave up 31 points in each of the quarters. So they gave up 62 points in total in the second half. That's just not going to get it done. And they only scored 17 points in the third quarter. Victor Oladipo didn't have the greatest night either. Only 16 points, 8 assists, and 4 rebounds. We know Victor Oladipo is a much better player. And yes, Indiana is a much more well-rounded, well-balanced team. But to me, this Cavs team was right there. So to me, like you said, really no adjustments were made. If anything, it was worse in the second half, Logan. So what are your thoughts on this Cavs-Pacers game? Who takes the blame for this one?
Again, I know I'm a bit jumpy on the new head coach, but I think Bickerstaff, again, the mid-second half adjustments, in my opinion, what makes a great head coach in any sport, you name it, NFL, college football, NBA, whatever it is, the second adjustments make a head coach because they decide the game and they decide what happens throughout the game. And, and that's where you got to make your money. That's where the big guys get paid. So, in my opinion, the fact that he couldn't make those adjustments to change the game is kind of what ruined that, and I'm going to put the loss on him.
So it seems, Logan, that you obviously you kind of talked about how you're kind of been being a little bit hard on Bickerstaff. Totally see why. Do you think that, going forward, he should continue as the head coach of the Cleveland Cavaliers? Because I personally think he should. I think he has those guys on the same page. I think now it's just a matter of adjustments because they haven't played basketball in, 9 months. So I think, I would definitely give him a chance. If you're Cavs management, are you willing to give him that chance still?
Yeah, we are only 5 games into the year. I'm willing to give him the rest of the season because at this point, again, this obviously, it doesn't take a genius to understand that this Cavs team is not a championship team. It's probably not a team that's making it out of the first round. Mm-hmm. So, in my opinion, this is your testing year. It's already blown up. You're just building. Find a coach that works. If you keep him and he works out and ends up, maybe he finds his midseason form, as I mentioned, Okoro possibly doing. If he finds his midseason form and starts coaching well, then he might be worth the hire. So I say you give him the rest of the year, and if it doesn't work out, you make some moves in the offseason.
Do you think, Logan, that the Cavs, I believe if the Cavs have a healthy roster, they can definitely make the playoffs, possibly pull off an upset? I don't think so. You just mentioned how they would be a first-round team. Do you think they would cause problems in the first round if you have a healthy Cavs roster that made the playoffs, or do you think they would be a team who would maybe lose in 4 or 5 games?
It definitely depends on who they play. If they were to come up and be an 8 seed against a Bucks team with Giannis, I think it's probably 4 to 5 games. But if you're talking about maybe you go in and you play, I don't know, per se a Wizards team, just for the heck of it. Let's say you play a Wizards team. They somehow get up to the 5 seed or something, and they play a Wizards team. And then they could make a lot of noise, and in my opinion, they could play that series because, if Bradley Beal doesn't play well and Russell Westbrook continues to play the way that he has started this season, then, you guys should take a few games in the series. So I think it depends on who they play. But if they were to stay at 7-8 seed, I'm saying 4 to 5 games they're out.
Yeah, so one more topic I kind of want to mention specifically related to the Cavs, Logan. So Kevin Love has only played 2 games with the Cleveland Cavaliers. He played in their second game against Detroit, and he played in the third game against Philadelphia, and both were wins, by the way. Now Kevin Love is going to be out for 3 to 5 weeks, now with a calf strain. And to me, Logan, I don't know about you, this is my last straw with Kevin Love. I honestly, it's trading time. It's time to go. We heard, we were hearing rumors this last couple seasons, like, are the Cavs going to trade Kevin Love? What are the trade rumors surrounding Kevin Love? To me, it's time for Kevin Love to go. He needs, I just don't see why the Cavaliers would keep him. This is honestly a little bit ridiculous to me. Logan, he missed almost the entire 18-19 season with a toe injury. He played the majority of last season, and now what's frustrating is he's only played 2 games. Now he's going to be out for at least 3 weeks because of a calf injury. I'm not saying these injuries aren't legit. You have to take care of your body. Yes, Kevin Love is getting older, and to me, the Cavs are a rebuilding team. And if you're a rebuilding team, you need a guy who's going to stay, stable, who's going to be, you're going to be able to count on night in, night out to play on the court and give it their all in a rebuilding situation. So, Logan, before I move on with this topic, do you agree that the Cavs should trade Kevin Love?
Yeah. I've always been a huge supporter of trading Kevin Love. And, I think it was trading time 3 years ago. He since last year, the year that he played, almost the whole year, he was averaging, I don't even think barely 15 points a game, if that. And, and to me, that's not worth $25 million a year.
Right.
He can't stay healthy. And I just think that that's a huge issue for a guy that is expected to be a number 1 guy. I think he needs to play better. He needs to play more consistently, and he needs to be a number 1 guy. So I think it's been trading time for a lot longer than just now. I think he should have been gone 2-3 years ago when LeBron and Kyrie left, because it's getting a little bit out of hand.
Yeah, I was one of those guys who was thinking, maybe it might not be the worst idea to trade him, but I was one of those guys who kept giving him a chance. He played. My mindset was, he played the majority of last season. Give him a chance, and now it's just he's going to be out 3 to 5 weeks just with the snap of a finger. And my mindset was this needs to be blown up. Kevin Love needs to be traded. And that got me thinking of what the Cavs can possibly do, a possible trade scenario. And Logan, I want to get your thoughts on this. My thoughts are the Cavs doing a trade with the Los Angeles Clippers of all teams. And I'll tell you who the Cavs should trade for. The Cavs should trade for Marcus Morris and Reggie Jackson. And you're probably thinking Marcus Morris isn't even half the player Kevin Love is, but I would maybe agree to disagree a little bit, because last year Marcus Morris started off his season with the Knicks, where he played 43 games. He averaged almost 20 points. Now that was his career high. He's now averaging about 10 points with the Clippers, and when he was with the Celtics, Logan, he averaged about 14 points per game. Now, those are stats that are similar to Kevin Love. The shot about 44% from the field, 44% from three-point range. So, he's going to get his numbers, and he's a guy who can create his own shot, and he's a quality defender as well. What I like about Marcus Morris also, Logan, is he brings that toughness. And I think the Cavs, all these young guys like Sexton, Garland, even Nance Jr., and especially Isaac Okoro with him being a rookie, that toughness that Marcus Morris would instill in that Cavs locker room, I think would be something very special, and it would just elevate all the young guys and even some of the veterans as well. Now, I also think the Cavs, along with Marcus Morris, should get Reggie Jackson as well, because I just don't think Dante Exum's getting it done. He's not a serviceable guard to me. I mean, I'm rooting for the guy. I think seems like a really nice young kid, but I just don't think he fits in with this offense and what the Cavs are trying to accomplish. So if I'm the Cavs, here's who I'm trading to get Marcus Morris and Reggie Jackson, Logan. I'm going to trade away Kevin Love, send him to the Clippers. I'm going to trade Exum to the Clippers, and I'm also going to trade in Dean Wade to the Clippers as well, just as extra backup for kind of to entice the LA Clippers to accept this deal. I think if you're the Clippers, you get another rebounder, another scorer in Kevin Love to go along with Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, and then you also get another guard, Exum, to pair up with Lou Williams. So your thoughts on that possible trade? So Cavs will get Morris and Reggie Jackson. Clippers will get Love, Exum, and Dean Wade. Your thoughts on that, Logan, or what other maybe trades would you think of?
So that is actually it would be probably a trade that would more than likely be accepted by the Los Angeles Clippers. But the issue that I would have with a trade like that is, in my opinion, my belief, my history and knowledge of past champions of the NBA. In the past 10 to 15 years, right, I don't think right now, if you look at the Cavs roster, you analyze it, I mean, Sexton, I think, is going to be a great B-plus level player. B-plus, maybe A- good nice, right?
Right.
I don't really see an A-level player on that team. In the past 10 to 15 years, you've seen a lot of great teams win the championship, right? Or a lot of, even the Heat last year. I can't say that I've seen a team in the past 10 to 15 years even go to the finals and not have one of those players. I mean, even the Heat last year, right?
Right.
Oh, that team was full of really good B players, really good, solid starters, right? They had Jimmy Butler, who, by far, without question, is an A player.
Mm-hmm.
You saw when he needed to get it done, he got it done. I don't think the Cavs have a player. So if I'm the Cavs, I don't know if I even consider trading Kevin Love unless I'm getting a first-round pick out of it. Because I think that is this draft upcoming is going to be a huge talent-stacked draft.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got guys like Evan Mobley coming out, who looks like one of the best players ever to come out of a draft. And I'm really big on getting picks this year. I think I don't even consider trading Kevin Love unless I'm getting a pick back for it, because, I mean, again, I love Marcus Morris. I love, Reggie Jackson. I think they're both dogs on defense. They both love to play defense. They both love to have the ball in their hands. They both love to play basketball as a whole. But they're both B-level players. I think the Cavs need to find a way to acquire an A-level player. Maybe not the likes of a LeBron James or a Curry, but maybe, like a Butler or even an Adebayo. Because, I mean, Drummond, like I said, is very good, but I don't think he's Bam Adebayo anymore. He used to be back in Detroit, but I don't think he's that anymore. So I think the Cavs need to find a way, whether that's move Love in a pick or move Love in assets like you had mentioned, but I think they got to move Kevin Love for a pick.
And, if that's a very good point, Logan. Obviously, you want to accumulate draft picks to ensure a better future. If I'm the Cavs, I would maybe, ask the Clippers, for a draft pick as well to go along with Morris and Jackson. But the problem is, if you want to make this trade with the Clippers, do you remember when Kawhi Leonard wanted Paul George to be on the Clippers? Kawhi was like, I specifically want him. Do you remember how many picks? I don't remember off the top of my head, but the Clippers had to give up so many picks to the Oklahoma City Thunder. And the Clippers, if you want to get that trade done with the Clippers, it's probably going to be almost impossible because the Clippers barely have any picks with all the ones they traded to OKC. Logan, is there maybe a specific deal you would do? You were talking about, how Bam Adebayo and it isn't really like Andre Drummond. Is there kind of another player who you would trade Kevin Love for?
No, I really do think that it would take a lot of pieces to make a trade happen. But I would find a way to trade for Lou Williams. Okay. And I'll explain. So, with Lou Williams, you're talking about a guy who can get his own shot guaranteed. He knows how to get it done all around the court. He can shoot, he can dribble, he's 6 foot and can shoot over anybody. And you ask for a pick. So I'm thinking you trade Kevin Love Dante Exum, and I know this is your guy, but I'm thinking you might get rid of Matthew Dellavedova.
Okay.
You're going to be taking a lot of money with Lou Williams. And Matthew Dellavedova, very similar to Reggie Jackson, is a dog, but he's not a scorer. And the Cavs need defense and scoring. Lou Williams knows how to play the passing lane. He's a very underrated defender with his size. So I think you're talking about a veteran guard who can work with both Garland and Sexton and make them possibly those A-, B+ players that I mentioned earlier. And I think that the money will work out. So you're getting a first-round pick and Lou Williams in return for for Kevin Love, who is an awful contract, and a couple of younger pieces.
Yeah, so I definitely, I mean, who would not want Lou Williams on their team, you know? Thing is, for me, Logan, if I could pull off that trade, I would in a heartbeat. But Lou Williams is 34. Like, let's not forget, you know, so he's probably, I would think this would maybe be a one-and-done situation if you're Lou Williams, because, you know, the guy's 34. He's never won an NBA championship, and I don't think he'd be very committed to staying with the Cavs. So I look at that. Is that something you're concerned about as well if you were to do that deal, Logan?
Yeah, I mean, of course I'd be concerned with someone not wanting to stay on a Cavalier team, but at the same time, like I mentioned earlier, I mean, he would be looking more kind of like a team like that would sign Kyle Korver, for example, right?
Right.
You don't really sign him to come out and score 15 points a game like he used to do in Atlanta, or hit 4 threes a game or whatever like that. You kind of look to him kind of like the Bucks did. Remember, I don't know if you remember when the Bucks first signed Kyle Korver, but they were talking about posting videos of Kyle Korver working with Giannis on his shot. Because, I mean, I think everybody in the NBA that knows about Giannis Antetokounmpo knows that if this man gets a shot, he has a chance to be virtually unstoppable.
Right.
He'd be the muscly version of Kevin Durant, and that would just be insane. But I think that's exactly why they got him, was to help work with their better players, and I think that's why we would get Lou Williams. He would help a little bit off the bench, maybe like a sixth man, like he does in Los Angeles, and he would work with our younger guards with the shot, and I think that would completely change the culture in Cleveland, because he's always been around a winning culture despite never winning a championship. Right. Lou Williams has almost always been on winning teams.
He's played with Allen Iverson too.
The Clippers or whoever he was with. He was always on a winning team.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of culture is what Cleveland needs, because I mean even then, you think about some of the guys the Cavs have gotten, such as Andre Drummond. He didn't have a lot of success in Detroit. He wasn't, an Eastern Conference Finals player every year.
Yeah.
Things like that. These aren't guys that have won all their career. So I think you're talking about a guy like Lou Williams. He'll bring a winning culture to Cleveland. He will bring veteran leadership to some of the guards. He'll be one of those guys, because despite Lou Williams maybe not being an A+ player, the dude can get it done with the ball. He can score the basketball like a lot of dudes that I've never seen before. Yeah. So I give him a lot of credit. So I think this trade would benefit the Cavs in two completely different ways by both giving them a pick, which they could also use that pick to trade and ask for assets for future drafts or other players and things like that. So I think that this trade kind of works out as a win-win for both teams, with the Clippers getting a role player in Kevin Love and the Cavs getting more young assets that they could use.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be very good points you brought up, Logan. Definitely going to be interested to see if the Cavs do something before the NBA trade deadline. What moves they'll make, if they'll acquire some more draft picks. Now that Okoro's out, it's gonna be interesting to see how Colin Sexton and Darius Garland are gonna hold up this offense. So, final NBA topic before we get to the Browns, Logan. Let's go around the league, just outside the Cavs. So, I want to ask you this, Logan. Who have been your teams that you've been most excited, who you've been most surprised about, and who are the teams so far that you've been disappointed about? I know we're only about 5 games in, but what are your thoughts, Eastern Conference or Western Conference?
Well, I'll give you one of each. So in the East, I've been absolutely ecstatic about this Nets team.
Yeah.
They seem absolutely unbeatable with the way that Kevin Durant has played. I came into this season expecting Kevin Durant to, find himself maybe 80% around midseason form, right? First game against this Golden State Warriors team, this guy comes out, and he has like 10 points before the end of the first quarter. Mm-hmm. And you just saw the kind of shots he was taking. He was, doing his, signature pull-up, 3-point line. He's driving baseline. He looked 80% himself in the first quarter of the first game of the season, and that just to me got me really excited about this team. And Kyrie Irving is going to do his thing offensively. I think the key for this team is staying healthy. If they can keep Dinwiddie healthy, if they can keep Kyrie healthy, this is a very underrated team that has a lot of depth.
Mm-hmm.
You think of the Nets, you think of Kyrie and Kevin Durant. Oh, they've got super high power. You think of this bench. You've got Jarrett Allen coming off of the bench.
Karis LeVert.
Maybe a guy like Dinwiddie. And
Karis
that
LeVert
is just,
well.
those are two guys that are starting on almost every team in the NBA, if not every team in the NBA.
Yeah.
Minus the Warriors with Thompson healthy, those two guys are starting on every single team.
And don't forget about Karis LeVert either.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, don't forget about Karis LeVert either. That guy is that guy's a walking bucket too.
And that's another guy that can get his own shot. I mean, I compare him to, maybe a younger version of, a guy like Bradley Beal, maybe not a lesser version of Bradley Beal.
Mm-hmm.
He's a piece that he can get his own shot. He can shoot the ball. He can drive and finish. He'll hit his free throws. This team just looks unbeatable right now. And if they continue to play like this, I see them being the number one seed in that Eastern Conference and absolutely shocking the NBA with going to the NBA Finals in the first season. And that would be awesome because I think I'm not a huge fan. I don't have a lot of respect for Kevin Durant because of his past decisions. But, I mean, it would be awesome to see this team in their first year with Steve Nash as the head coach to come in and go to the NBA Finals. As for the Western Conference, I've been really, really, really disappointed in this Golden State Warriors team.
Yeah, they're 2-2.
I really got excited about them. I really thought that this was going to be a team that could compete in the Western Conference and maybe, fight for a playoff spot, which is still possible.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know. Maybe people will step up, but but next to James Wiseman's been a huge upside for the Warriors. I mean, he had 17, 18 in his NBA debut. Yeah. He had 19 a couple nights ago. He has played really, really well.
And he's a better shooter than I was just going to say, he's a better shooter than I thought he was. Like, he can hit it from outside.
Yeah. He's been really good and stretching the floor for this Warriors team, which is exactly what they were looking for. And I think that, they just need to find their rhythm because this can't keep up if they want to be a playoff team. Because, just as stacked, as top-heavy as the East is, the West is just as heavy. I mean, you're talking about a Portland Trailblazer team that it might be coming up as well. I mean, They could end up being an 8 seed like they were last year. And with Portland at an 8 seed, I'm not very confident in Golden State making the playoffs playing the way they are. I think Kelly Oubre's got to step up and play better, I think. You got to have Curry's played well. He's just got to be a better leader than he has been.
Mm-hmm.
And James Wiseman just got to keep doing what he's doing, continue to take his game to the next level, and that team's got to step it up. But that's my big disappointment for these first 5 or 6 games of the season. It's been the Golden State Warriors.
So I'll share mine with you as well, Logan. So I'll start with my surprise for my surprise team. They're in the Eastern Conference. It's the Atlanta Hawks. As of right now, they're the 4th seed in the East. I know we've only been playing 4 or 5 games. They have a 3-1 record, though. And a couple of nights ago, Logan, they played the Brooklyn Nets and almost won that game. They lost by only 4. 145 to 141 was the final score. What impressed me most was not only did the Hawks score 141 points, but Trae Young didn't have to go off and score, 60 for them to be competitive. Trae Young only had to score 30 points, had 11 assists and 6 rebounds. Other guys were getting it done too. Cam Reddish is really coming out of his shell now, 20 points in that game against Brooklyn. John Collins had 30 as well. You have Bogdan Bogdanovic as well, who had 22 points. Rajon Rondo, no points, but he had 6 assists. That's the Rondo we all know and love. We don't need him to be a scorer, just be a great passer, and he's certainly going to help this Atlanta team. So, Logan, what are your thoughts on the Atlanta Hawks? I mean, this team looks a lot better than I thought they were going to be because these past few years, ever since they, lost Paul Millsap, they've basically been irrelevant. I mean, Trae Young's been their only scorer, and they took a huge leap. They were one of the worst teams in the entire league last year, and now Trae Young has help, and he doesn't have to score 50 for them to be competitive. What are your thoughts on the Hawks?
So the one thing that I, like to do with teams that are at the bottom, teams like the Knicks, the Cavs, and the Magic, and so on, right?
Right.
I like to compare them to each other. We had a whole long conversation about this Cavaliers team and the holes that they had and the big upsides that they had with the guards. The thing that I will say about the Hawks compared to the Cavs, I like the Hawks more than I like the Cavs right now.
Yeah.
Despite the fact Cavs might be a bit deeper. They might be having a little bit more success offensively. Because, you can look at one big scoring game and, say all the good stuff about it. But, you look at the other game, the Hawks haven't been blowing up the scoreboard every game. It's been, a couple of here and there, obviously. But it's going to slow down in my opinion. But the one thing that I will say about the Hawks compared to the Cavs is they have one of the key X factors that I told you about right when I was talking about Kevin Love trade. And they have that A+. They have that A to A+ player.
Yeah.
I am huge on Trae Young. I think he is one of the most explosive scorers in the NBA right now at a guard position. I mean, you think scoring-wise, I put him up with, guys like maybe James Harden. Mm-hmm. He's just not talked about because he plays on the Hawks. It's kind of like talking about NFL run game, right? If a team can't throw the football, it's pretty easy to stop the run game.
Yeah.
So it's the same thing with the Hawks. They don't have a lot of other scores. So last year, Trae Young wasn't talked about. He's scoring 30 points a game-ish, and he's not talked about because they win 10 games. Mm-hmm. I think now people are going to start talking about this team because now you've got a guy like John Collins who's finally taking that leap forward that I've been waiting for him to take. And I think you're going to have this Hawks team scoring 30-plus from Trae, possibly, per game, if he has a great year. And, you're talking 20-plus from John Collins, which right now, through these first 5 games, if I had to pick, John Collins is my most improved player. Mm-hmm. Right along with Colin Sexton.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely looked great. So excited to see what the Hawks and Lloyd Pierce are going to be able to do if they can make the playoffs and possibly pull off an upset. Now, I'm going to get last topic here, Logan, my most disappointing team in the NBA. We're going to stay in the Eastern Conference, and to me, it's hands down the Washington Wizards. I mean, they're 0-5. This backcourt of Westbrook and Beal was supposed to be, a great thing. We were talking about this too a couple weeks ago. We both were super excited to see Russell Westbrook in DC, and it's just not clicked for the Wizards. And it's not like they've been playing, the Nets or the Bucks and they've come up with like close losses. They've played some mediocre teams. Their first game of the season, Logan, they were playing the Sixers and they lost by 6. So that's very understandable. The Sixers are, a championship contending team. We understand that. The rest of their losses came to the Orlando Magic and the Chicago Bulls, who the Orlando Magic have a chance of, making the playoffs maybe as that 8th seed, but the Chicago Bulls are irrelevant to me. I think the Cavs and Hawks are better than the Bulls. And the Wizards couldn't even win one of those 4 games. And, I'm very concerned. It's not like they're 0-2 and they're, going to start, they're 0-5. Like, they've had 5 games to figure this out, and they still can't figure it out. What are your thoughts on the Wizards' situation right now?
Well, I think we're really seeing the fact that Russell Westbrook cannot play without the ball in his hands.
Yeah.
You look at all these other numerical stats, compare, you think of assists. He has to have the ball in his hands. Rebounds, that's pure effort.
Yeah.
He's a big effort guy, and you got to applaud him for that. Not every guy is like that.
Right.
But yeah, I think his biggest detriment in his game is the fact that he has to have the ball in his hand. That's what makes guys like Kevin Durant and LeBron James so great. Is the fact that LeBron cannot touch the ball for 2 or 3 possessions, and then they need a bucket, he's going to get it done.
Yep.
Russell Westbrook has to catch a rhythm early, and if he doesn't, he's screwed the rest of the game. And that's, like I said, what makes LeBron and Kevin Durant so great. Kevin Durant, can shoot 0 for 5 to start the game, and, they need a big bucket, and he's going to pull up in your face and hit a shot, no problem, no questions asked. And, the thing is, no one's going to act surprised because that's what he does. Russell Westbrook isn't that kind of guy. He's the guy that if he catches a rhythm, he's unstoppable. You're not going to stop him. He's going to get you to the rack. He's going to beat you down until you just give up.
Yeah.
But if he doesn't catch fire early, he's just as good as Colin Sexton or one of the bench guys. Maybe not Colin Sexton, but a guy like Dante Exum. He's like that. he's kind of squeamish and off the ball, or he forces it. So I think that has been the biggest issue in Washington is Russell Westbrook's inability to score the basketball and catch rhythm. But, I mean, Bradley Beal hasn't been all that great either. I mean, he hasn't played like the Beal that we saw last year, which concerns me.
And, I really thought that, I thought John Wall was going to be a Wizard for life, honestly, just how, he was drafted by them. It seemed like, he was rehabbing from his injury. And, they traded for Russell Westbrook. The Wizards obviously pulled the trigger on this deal. And the Wizards have some catching up to do, and they have to do it fast. So going to be very interested to see how this NBA season plays out. Ladies and gentlemen, overall Cavs schedule, we'll get that for you real quick here. They'll be tomorrow, the Cleveland Cavaliers will be in Atlanta for a matchup against the Hawks. That'll be a fun battle of the backcourts. That'll be tomorrow at 7:30 p.m. from Atlanta. The Cavs will continue their road trip with a pair of games in Orlando at the Amway Center against the Magic. Both games are at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Monday, January 4th, and Wednesday, January 6th. The Cavs will then go to Memphis for a matchup with the Grizzlies on Thursday, January 7th at 8 p.m. After that game against Memphis, the Cavs will head to Milwaukee to take on Giannis and the Bucks at Pfizer Forum this next Saturday, January 9th at 8 p.m. So that concludes our NBA news for this week, and we're going to get into some Browns talk now. And Logan, I could not be biting my nails any much longer because I am very nervous about the Browns and their playoff chances right now. I wasn't nervous in a few weeks ago when the Browns clobbered the Giants. The final score of that game, Logan, 20-6 in favor of the Browns. Browns were down after the first quarter, 3-0. But in the second quarter, they scored 13 points of their own to take a 13-3 lead into the half and basically just held their own in the second half. Baker Mayfield, 27 of 32 for 297 yards, 2 touchdowns for him. Nick Chubb had a touchdown in the game as well. Jarvis Landry and Austin Hooper also with touchdowns for Cleveland. So let's get into their first New York game. Logan, what were your thoughts on this Browns win against the Giants?
Well, I was watching the first half, and I was sitting there on the couch watching the game, and the score just seemed the game almost unlike all the other Browns games this year. It was boring because nothing was happening. Guys that I've talked so highly on the past couple of weeks, Baker playing well with the money on the line, and Nick Chubb being one of the best backs, if not the best back in the NFL right now. They just didn't do anything in the first half. It was so weird to play. It just seemed like everyone was going in slow motion. You talk about how the Sixers were sluggish. It seemed like that way with the Browns. They were almost like, hey, it's a free win. I'm not worried. Kind of like that. And that really concerned me going into this Jets game. And,
yeah, that's the big one.
I actually stopped watching after the first half. I was kind of just sick of watching. I was like, I'm going to turn on NBA. I'm not going to watch this anymore because the Browns weren't doing anything. I expected this game to be a blowout of epic proportions. I expected the Browns to come out and just put a beating on this team. And they didn't do that. I mean, 20-6, a 14-point win, excuse me. You think, all right, 2 touchdowns. This is a Browns team that has been showing up against these big-time teams.
Yeah.
But they just haven't been showing out against these small, in my opinion, completely awful teams. The Giants, the Jets, the Bengals, teams like that. They just played like crap.
Yeah. And
so I think that was a huge issue with the Browns offense, with how just sluggish they were.
Yeah, and Logan, those issues got even worse this past weekend. You were mentioning the Jets a couple times. To me, this could be hands down the worst loss of the entire season for the Browns. The Browns lost this game 23-16 in the Meadowlands in New Jersey. Baker Mayfield. I was watching a little bit of this game, Logan, and when I was seeing how the way Baker Mayfield was performing, my palms were getting a little sweaty because I was thinking, oh my gosh, this is like the Baker Mayfield we saw at the beginning of the season in that opening game against Baltimore. Remember that game he had against Pittsburgh at Heinz Field? And I was kind of like, this is like the Baker Mayfield. He's going back to his old ways, and that's not what he was doing in the last few weeks prior to this matchup. So that was scary to me. And the Browns just never seem to put their foot on the gas pedal at all. Their highest scoring quarter was the third quarter in their game against the Jets. They had 7 points, but the Jets also scored 7 points in the third quarter. So that intensity just wasn't there. And, it's not like the Browns rested, and we understand that all those guys who were on the COVID list, that's understandable. But, I mean, if that was to happen in any week, all your guys getting off with the COVID list, it would hopefully be a week where you're going up against the Jets. And perfect scenario for the Browns, and they still just can't get it done, and that's concerning. And now their playoff chances have dramatically dropped. This game against Pittsburgh is going to be a huge one. But before we talk about that Pittsburgh game, Logan, what were your thoughts and takeaways from this Browns loss to the Jets on Sunday?
Well, I learned a couple things. Number one, I think that one of the things that a lot of people, analysts, and I've seen a lot of videos about the Browns, people talking about them, and all the talks are about how bad Baker played or how poor the run game was. The issue that I had watching that game was how pathetic of a performance there was by the Browns defense.
Yeah,
I mean, you're talking about a Jets offense that their best player is a crippled old running back by the name of Frank Gore.
Mm-hmm.
That's their best offensive weapon. To me, that is an absolute joke that this team put up more than one touchdown on you. One touchdown is forgivable. The amount of points that this team put up against this Browns defense was very, very concerning to me. As for offense, I think that at the end of the day, Baker made a lot of mistakes. But the thing that scared me about it, to me, Baker Mayfield's going to make Baker Mayfield mistakes in some games.
Right,
he's going to make mistakes. He's going to do his thing. We've seen the best of them have bad games. It's okay. The thing that scared me was the run game. Terrified me. Not that I'm giving Baker a free pass or anything like that, but everyone has their bad games. The run game. You have two of the top running backs in the NFL. Neither of them really got it going. Neither.
Yeah.
Nick Chubb did okay. Kareem Hunt did okay. Nobody played well. And when you look at the games where Nick Chubb, was maybe a little bit less than Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt picked it up. He had a couple touchdowns, or he had a couple big receptions that changed the game. Or same with Hunt and Chubb, or vice versa. So it's just that is the defense and the run game really concerned me. And Baker didn't have the weapons, which I'm a little bit worried about the fact that he can't. He might have just proven to us that he cannot play without weapons.
Yeah.
Which is a little bit worrisome because, you think of some of the greats, a guy like Tom Brady. I mean, despite the fact that he didn't have a great year last year with the Patriots, he had nothing, and they were one of the top seeds in the AFC.
Yeah.
And that's what the great ones do, is they don't need a whole bunch of pieces, and Baker worries me with that. But right now, my biggest concern watching that game was the defense and the run game. If that doesn't pick up, then the Browns might not be playoffs.
And so you just mentioned playoffs, Logan, and that's hopefully a word we'll be associating the Browns with in these next coming weeks. But it's also a word we might not be associating the Browns with. And here, they have a big game this upcoming Sunday against the Steelers. And I'm looking at an article on the Springfield News-Sun, and it's talking about the simplest way for the Cleveland Browns to win this game. It's an article by John Boyle, as I mentioned, of the Springfield News-Sun. And they're saying the simplest way for the Browns to make the playoffs, Logan, is beating the Steelers. And honestly, I don't think it should be that difficult because Ben Roethlisberger's not playing. Their Steelers are resting him. They're also resting 3 more additional players. They're resting Marquise Pouncey, linebacker TJ Watt, and defensive end Cameron Hayward. None of them are going to be playing for the Pittsburgh Steelers. So in this case, Logan, Browns have a shot. So the simplest way for them to make the playoffs is beat Pittsburgh. Here are some other ways that they can do it, Logan. So the Indianapolis Colts have to lose to the Jacksonville Jaguars, which seems almost impossible. Tennessee has to lose, and plus Miami has to win or tie, and then Baltimore have to win or tie. Another way is Browns tie, Baltimore lose, Browns tie, Miami loses, Browns tie, Tennessee loses, Browns tie, Indianapolis ties, and then the final possibility is Browns have to tie, Tennessee has to tie, Baltimore has to win, and Miami has to win. I know that sounded like, an entire chemistry equation I just threw at you, but as I mentioned, simplest way for them, don't even have to worry about any of that if they just beat Pittsburgh. So to me, Logan, do you think the Browns can do it? Can they beat this Pittsburgh Steelers team who's going to be undermanned? Mason Rudolph's going to be the starting quarterback for Pittsburgh on Sunday. Can the Browns do this? Can they make the playoffs?
Well, I've got a quite simple answer for that question, and that is yes. But that's a very loaded answer. It's one word, but it's loaded because to me, the Browns have to look at this like it's a playoff game.
Yeah.
In my opinion, if they lose this game, they're done.
Oh, yeah.
You might as well get it out of here because the Indianapolis Colts are going to crush the Jags. They're not the Browns. Phillip Rivers is more experienced. He's not going to do that. He's going to win that game.
Right.
If the Browns lose this game, they're done. But at the same time, again, all the Browns fans, money says that they are all going to sit at home and be like, free win, Mason Rudolph at quarterback, joking around about how he sucks. Mike Glennon almost beat the Cleveland Browns. Sam Darnold just beat the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah.
I mean, you are talking about a team.
There have been times that there have been times that Joe Burrow's almost beaten the Browns too, Logan, and he's a rookie.
And precisely, and you're talking about a Browns team that so far this season has been absolutely famous for blowing what seems to be the easiest wins. I mean, it's kind of exciting. I'm already dancing in my shoes about this Browns team possibly making the playoffs and me getting to watch Baker Mayfield throw games in the playoffs, right?
Right.
But right now, it's about this game because this Browns team, just as easy as they can win it, can throw it. Mm-hmm. And it's very, very possible that they will. Because despite the fact that the Browns are playing a very, very undermined team with just three best players unarguably out, two on the defense, and most efficient quarterbacks in the NFL right now.
Yeah,
they still have a lot of weapons. I don't know if the Browns defense is going to be able to keep up with that, especially with the terrible performance that they had at the Jets last week. In my opinion, if Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt don't combine for 150 yards, the Browns are not going to win this game. Because I don't know if I trust Baker right now. If they don't run for 150 yards and Baker Mayfield, who drops 400 yards and 3 touchdowns and they win the game, mm-hmm. I won't say a word. But I don't see that happening. If the Browns running game gets shut down like they did last week, I don't see the Browns making the playoffs this year.
And, going to be a very, nervous tension's going to be at First Energy Stadium this upcoming Sunday. Steelers and Browns will be facing off in Cleveland at First Energy Stadium. Sunday at 1 p.m. is when the game is scheduled to start. Kickoff will commence. And let's get you in the standings in the AFC North. Browns, they were second. I thought, they might be able to, really pull off a great upset here and really make some strides. They were second for a while, you remember, Logan. Now they've dropped to third because Lamar Jackson and the Ravens have been on a tear recently. Ravens have won their last 4 games. And, this is not what the Browns needed, whatsoever. So Browns definitely have a lot to play for on Sunday. So gonna be really interested to see that. Well, Logan, that concludes our segment of the Cleveland Sports Show. I know this was a longer one, so thank you so much for hanging in with me, but I definitely think this was a fantastic portion of our episode to start the new year. Really appreciate all of your insight and discussions with me. It's really been great working with you these last few weeks. Have a great start to your new year, Logan. Thank you so much for joining me.
Of course. Thank you, too. All right. See ya.
See ya. And that concludes our 91st episode of the Cleveland Sports Show, ladies and gentlemen. Only a few more episodes to go. Now, you're probably wondering, Darius, that was honestly music to my ears, that podcast you just did. Where can I hear more of that wonderful music? Well, guess what? I have you covered. Because if you're on NordoniaHills.News, you're already, 95% there. Just go to the contributors tab on NordoniaHills.News, and then you'll find my name. It's about the 3rd or 4th one down. It's spelled DARAYUSSETHNA. Once you click on my name, you'll be able to find all of the work I've been doing with NordoniaHills.News. I had a chance to write an article about the Cavs and how they've been preparing for this season with all the COVID concerns. I also been doing some broadcasts for Nordonia High School basketball, the boys varsity team. So if you missed their games, you want to rewatch their games, they're all there on NordoniaHills.News for you to see. Also, I have my past episodes of the Cleveland Sports Show right there in that list in the contributors tab on NordoniaHills.News. You can also check out my Twitter account. That's another very important place you'll want to go if you want to see more of my work. Like I said, I post all my episodes to the podcast there, as well as the broadcast for Nordonia boys basketball, as well. And I also post the links to the articles that I write on NordoniaHills.News as well. You can also take the Cleveland Sports Show with you on the go on Spotify. That's right. So whether you're in Cincinnati, Florida, I don't know, wherever you choose to be in the world, you can take the Cleveland Sports Show with you on Spotify. Just type in my name, spelled DARAYUSSETHNA, or you can type in the Cleveland Sports Show, and you'll be able to access all of the podcast episodes there on Spotify as well. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you had a fantastic start to your new year. Wishing everyone a very, very happy holiday season. I'm excited to return back to school and get back into the community. Hope you all have a fantastic 2021. Thank you so much for listening to us this week. Really, I know this was a much longer episode than we usually have it, but man, it is great to have sports finally back and basketball finally back as well. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me. We will see you soon for our next episode of the Cleveland Sports Show. Take care, everyone.